And we are live. Welcome to the Tripod, where we break down every NRL game every week from a punting perspective. I'm Jacob Wynn. I'm joined by the Padonis. And tonight we are recapping round one, the opening round of the 2022 season, a round that had a bit of everything, so heaps for us to unpack. Mixed results for us. Mixed matchup was very successful, but best bets, we went 1-1 on our two best bets. We didn't nail either of our multis. But we did get the mixed matchup up again. So, Matthias, already you're 100%, mate. As Matthias is sharing this live into the group, he's 100% as far as being involved in mixed matchups. So the streak just continues there. Now, when I talk about results and when we talk about results every week, look, different people are going to have slightly differing results depending on how you follow us. If you're someone who just plays multis, you're only going to be happy the week that we nail the board and get everything right. Some people, we always say, just play the plays you agree with. So you may or may not jump on our best bets. From our point of view, number one priority, nail the best bets, which this week we didn't nail. We went 1-1. Next priority is the mixed matchup. Anyone can get at that. There's a very nice limit on that. You could add up to $200 on that, and it paid $2.45 this week, and it was not even close to losing. And then multis, jump on them as you wish, or, tinker with it, or, make your own version, whatever. But we know you love multis and we do try our best, but you're always going to need a little bit of luck as well as getting pretty much all your plays right. So as I throw to you, Matthias, what did you enjoy most about round one? Can you hear me, buddy? I think I've lost him there, so I'm just going to carry on and I'll try and get your comments coming through. Yeah, I've lost the Padonis there. That's all right, guys. We'll go on now. Another thing I want to say, and hopefully I can get the Padonis back on the line. Another thing I want to say, but please tell me if you can still hear and see me. This is not going to be a kind of a hindsight hero pod. We don't want to be Gus Gould that, when the Knights are beating the Roosters by 14 points late in the game, then he comes and says, you could tell the Roosters were in trouble in this game. We really only want to come on to the recap to give you valuable insights and observations that we can use moving forward. Padonis, have you got us there, mate?
Sorry, mate. Bit of internet troubles there. Happy Sunday,
That's
everyone.
all right. Yeah, tell us what stood out to you most from round one.
A bit of an indifferent round. Footy's back and the excitement hasn't ended. That's for sure. And it was a fantastic game we just saw just then to cap the round there. Sunday night ended up getting torrential there in the last 15 minutes. Townsville Dogs played the Cowboys there, and it was brutal if you're on the Cowboys, but I think that's a great place to start the round.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone would call that a great game, but I love games that come down to the wire and you learn a lot about teams and what they're made of, and it answers some of the questions. And that's going to be one of our challenges tonight is round one. We do not want to be prisoners of the moment. We don't want to overreact. This was one game out of 24 games in 24 rounds this season before finals. And not every team has a high priority on their performance as well, as I'm going to get to some teams that were underdone and really not too worried about it either. But we also have got new information. These are the most relevant games of footies that we can watch. So we do learn things. So what we've got to try and decipher tonight is what did we really learn out of these 8 games? What's real? And what was just a bad performance? What was just a bit of bad luck? And what was just a bit out there? Or, obviously if two really good teams play each other, they may not stand out as to how good they are. And conversely, if two poor teams play each other, we might not realize how bad they are. So you've got to take the opponent into account. But yeah, talk us a little bit more about the game we just finished, Matthias. What did you take away from that? The two teams that you thought would finish 15th and 16th, and we actually did tip Bulldogs as a smoky for wooden spoon. So, I wonder if in 5 months' time, does that finish come back to haunt us?
That definitely feels like a bit of a brutal one there. Shootout between the two of the bottom sides. It sort of felt like a bottom 4 clash. Clunky halves play, tight forward battle, plenty of mistakes and errors. We sort of predicted that in the season preview and on the weekly round one preview last week. We sort of said that the Dogs halves might not gel straight away off the bat, and that was part of our handicap on the Dogs during the season, and it sort of came to fruition in that game. I thought Burton and Averillo looked very disjointed, but the same can be said for the Cowboys halves as well, with Townsend there and Dearden. And look, the weather didn't help them in the second half there, but it could have went either way. I think the biggest takeaway for me there is that the Cowboys sort of didn't take advantage in the first half when they had all the momentum. They had the sin bin. They sort of didn't capitalize on that. And it was a little bit disheartening, I think, for them going into halftime, only 4-0 up. One try in each half. Dogs end up winning on a field goal. And then in saying that, you look right at the end, then the last 2 minutes, hammer offside by 2 millimeters. Goes to show you that the NRL is a game of inches.
The margins can be very slim. I thought, in a tight game, it's your halves that need to stand up and be the difference. And the Cowboys, I think the questions remain open. You talk about they're not capitalizing when they had the momentum win. The Dogs had a man in the bin. And then late in the game, when they did have a couple of repeat sets, bomb and put Dufty under pressure. That was very smart. Easily could have been a Cowboys try. Cruel that it got taken off them. But in the end, the Dogs gutted out. The difference between the two sides, a Matt Burton sideline conversion. Who knew how much talent this guy has that he can even drill them from the sideline? And I thought he actually did impress, although as a team, I wasn't that impressed by the Bulldogs. And yes, they did get a win, but they may have just beaten the worst team in the competition, to be brutally honest. We did both pick the Cowboys last in our forced predictions of all 16 teams, ranking them 1 to 16. So, yeah, I didn't feel like I changed my opinion too much of those sides. Now, before you cut out, I just said that we're really determined to make this pod valuable for people to watch. So it's not hindsight heroes. I would love to sit here and say, in round one, you should play all the underdogs because there's so much uncertainty and because we think of these teams as last year, but the teams are all different. It's a new season. But you guys can call BS on us if we say that, because where was our tip? We didn't pick these underdogs with the double-digit lines in week one. And the truth is, yes, you could take the points and figure there's so much variance and not all the best teams are going to be necessarily firing on all cylinders. But I do remember last year, the favourites came out gangbusters. The new rules favoured the front-running teams, favoured the teams that harnessed momentum. And last year, what did we see in the first couple of months of the season? Overs galore, favourites covering big spreads. So it's easy to say in hindsight that was predictable that all the underdogs would have so much success. It wasn't that predictable. And that did tie into a theme that I picked up watching the whole round of footy, 8 games. There weren't that many 6 agains. The games didn't just get out of control in terms of one team just piling on and snowballing and try after try. There was only one of the 8 games even went over the total. So that was kind of a global trend that I saw for the round. Was there anything in general that you picked up on, Matthias? Obviously, points were at a premium across the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Similar to your line of thinking, I actually had it written down here, lack of sin bins. We saw that last year. There was quite a few sin bins for either head high or repeated offsides where we wouldn't necessarily think it is repeated, but the refs want to sort of play that role there. But definitely a lot of tight, low-scoring games, and that's a huge trend there. And I think historically, Matty, the Undertaker, posted in the group last year that it does sort of trend to under in the first few rounds. And the 6 again rule sort of like killed that theory last year, but it definitely held true this round.
Yep. So as I say, what our goal is, we really want to try and give you valuable advice or observations that we can use moving forward. Or if you're someone who doesn't have the luxury of watching every game yourself, we're 2 people who do, and we do see the game and think about the game a little bit differently to several others. So maybe hearing what stood out to us will be of interest to you. We also want to hear what stood out to you. So please interact with us, and I'll try and bring up some of your comments as well. If you are watching this, it's available Facebook, YouTube, but also it's an audio pod, so consume however you like. But before we jump into the games, we've discussed the last one, but now we'll rewind to Thursday. But before that, let's actually hear how the bookies did from the horse's mouth. This is Market Watch from our sponsor, TopSport. Here's Tristan.
Hello, Tripod family. Great to have the NRL back. It was a really exciting weekend of football with a lot of lesser-liked teams being very, very competitive. We obviously saw a big upset in the Knights, the Tigers pushing the the Storm a long way, the Titans pushing the Eels a long way as well, and the Broncos getting an upset as well. So I think that's going to make for a very, very competitive season, which is different to years gone by. We've also seen, assuming we're doing this at halftime in the Bulldogs-Cowboys game, so assuming we get all bar one game going unders as well. So we're going to have to sit through and try to work out how we reframe the markets for next week. But interesting week. Our best result by a significant margin was the Roosters-Knights game. That was a good result from our end. The Roosters were very, very well backed in the halftime, full time in the match at the minus. So that one started our Saturday very well. Similar to the Storm Tigers game, but Storm obviously came back and got the result. Our worst couple of results were actually the Dragons Warriors. The Dragons have been backed all off season after their strong trial form. They were backed on the day. They were a pretty ugly result our end. And then the second last game, the Titans against the Eels. That was a pretty ugly result too, where the market move, we laid a lot of Eels head to head. And then right at the death, we laid the Titans at the plus once we probably moved it out, maybe a touch too far on the back of Brimston withdrawing from the game. So couple of good games, couple of bad ones. I think we've finished just in front, but obviously you guys are looking like you're going to get the chocolates in the Cowboys Bulldogs game. Looking forward to the season ahead. It looks like it's going to be a really, really good season.
Just in front. Do you believe him, Matthias? It looked like he was on a super yacht when he was saying that. But in all seriousness, I think that the bookies had to do well. I think it was a bit of a bloodbath for punters. I think we're lucky to escape going 1-1, winning the mixed matchup. But in all seriousness, a lot, and I mean a lot of people are back in the mixed matchup, and you can have up to $200 on it. Significant amount of money is being held by Toppy on these ones. When I said to Tristan, like, how'd you go overall for the weekend? And he said, well, it depends on the mixed matchup. Like, that's how big of a swing it can be. So that actually was in our favor. Certainly if you're a pod follower, you're getting a winning bet that your general punters out there that just all had their multis with Rabbits or with Roosters are not having that same level of success. So we should be thankful for that for sure. That was ripper. And of course, if you still don't have a Toppy account, you can jump on and use the code TRIPOD, and we're going to have a mixed matchup every single week. Now, let's jump into, let me see if I can bring it up, the opening game of the round, which was a surprise. Even if you picked Penrith, you didn't think Penrith was going to come out and win by 22. So Penrith won at home, the defending champs 28-6. And I throw to you, Padonis. I want to know what you took out of this game, and also want you to tell me who the best lock forward in the NRL is right now.
Right. So first of all, starting with the game there, it's like Penrith just picked up right from where they left off last year. We sort of said in our preview on Wednesday, we leaned Penrith. We thought the Lions sort of moved too far with the news Cleary was out. We were surprised that Penrith were catching points at home on opening night. And then after 15, 20 minutes there, I thought, oh, Jesus, we left one in the bank there. But Manly were dominating the forward pack, and that sort of didn't allow Trbojevic, Turbo to get any sort of platform and momentum in the game. And Penrith were still restricting them to 30, 40-metre sets. And we sort of thought that the new rule change this year, and that's probably something we didn't talk about in last week's preview, that if you are offside when the opponent's coming out of their own end, it's instant penalty now rather than a 6 again. And some people would say last year that Penrith were the biggest beneficiaries of that, always charging up, trying to be offside and put pressure on the opposition defence. And yeah, so we saw that straight away. Penrith were great off the bat. Manly, I'd still say that obviously it's important not to overreact, and that's something else I was going to talk about in the pod later on after we recap the games, stuff to look for moving forward. But Manly will still be okay. It was a good opportunity just to blow out a bit of rust. And like once the game was over in the second half there, I think they were just cruising a little bit.
And Matty Blanchard said Isaiah Yeo by a country mile, and I have to agree. I mean, Cam Murray is so good. Radley, who then got hurt subsequently on Saturday, I think he can be really special. But I feel like Isaiah Yeo, the power of his carries, but the way that he holds the ball and 2 hands out in front of himself and swerves towards the defense, he can honestly have a silky touch, and he can pop it off short or throw it out the back, and any play keeps the defense guessing. They didn't miss Cleary too much. And shout out to O'Sullivan because he fielded admirably. Luai took a little bit more responsibility, as did Appy, and Penrith were just dominant. Now, I don't want to overreact, okay? But I'm really tempted to. I'm really tempted to poke holes in the Seagulls right now. And I know there's still no Schuster and Dylan Walker didn't play. But it's like, are they just bullies? When do they ever step it up and beat another contender? When does Turbo dominate and take and win the game on his own against the top 4 team? It's like Turbo runs over people and runs around people and makes people look silly when they've got momentum, when the defense is taking a backward step. But in this game, every time Turbo touched the ball, 3 Panthers just met him, and he was very much negated. And if I'm going to keep criticizing, like Croker, he's not an elite hooker. Kieran Foran's not an elite 5'8". So, I mean, I did pick Manly 6th out of the 6 clear contenders for a reason. So, again, I don't want to overreact because, in a week or two, they can beat somebody else by 40, they're that kind of team. But maybe
sure.
give you one more chance to say, like, should we be worried? Like, do you read much more into that? It is just one game, but like, can that Seagulls team, make a grand final as some people have predicted?
Yeah, sort of watching that performance, it does make you question it. But it is round one, and I always have a golden rule that once you have your ratings, you sort of like let it play out for 2 weeks and not sort of adjust or go up or down too heavily, assuming there's no injuries, of course. But Manly would definitely look. It was a concerning watch, that's for sure. And Isaiah Yeo, to answer your question, that's my number 13 as well. The way that he can change their attack is unbelievable.
Let's move to Friday, where we had our first best bet of the round or of the season, and we got up, but it was a tight one. The Raiders won the game 24-19, coming right down to the wire try with under 2 minutes to go to win that one. We had plus 1.5 $2 odds as our best bet. People do ask us things like, well, why take like a crappy little line like plus 2.5? Why not just bet the win if you think they're going to win? Well, that plus 1.5 nearly was all the difference. They were down 1. And in fact, if you had plus 1.5, you were covering the entire game because the Raiders led by as much as 12 and never trailed by more than 1. In the end, actually grabbing the outright win. What did you make of this one? I feel like I've lost the Padonis again. So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and we'll see if we can get him back. Obviously, it's always tricky when there's two of us and the connection becomes an issue. But I do think we get a better quality pod when I have someone to speak to and it's not just me rambling all on my own. But I'll begin and we'll see if Matthias can hear me and chime in. But, this game, I'm not going to take a lot of credit. Like, I really liked the Raiders. We felt they were the right side. We couldn't quite understand why they were underdogs at home. But this game could have gone either way, and I wasn't overly impressed by either team. I mean, the Raiders started strong, 18-6 lead at halftime. They had all the ball, so they needed to score points in the first half. Hodgson off very early with a knee injury, so that was a bit of a worry. But dominant first half to score 18 points. You're feeling good, but then the question was, all right, are they going to carry on with it? Because the story for the last few years, and especially last year, the Raiders love blowing big leads. And sure enough, Sharkies back-to-back tries, and it's an 18-all game. And at that point, with 20 to go, 18-all, you want to be on Cronulla. And you don't want our best bet at plus 1.5 because it didn't look, you didn't feel too confident they were going to hang in there. Now, when there's 5 minutes to go and when Cronulla's kicking a field goal, you don't mind catching that 1.5. That's very valuable because now Cronulla's not going to be trying to extend the lead. But yeah, I'm not going to take a lot of credit because a lot of what we try to do with our best bets is we want to pick the teams like Penrith and we want to pick the teams like the Broncos and the teams like the Knights with the handicap start and then be able to say, yeah, we clearly picked an undervalued side. What we don't want to do is be betting, $1.91 on 50-50s because you're not going to make profit long term. And even though we got the $2 line in that game, you're still not going to hit anywhere near 60% if you're betting on coin tosses. So I think we're going to move on, although I will pose one more question to you guys as obviously Matthias is struggling with his connection there. I think it's an issue down in New South Wales way. I don't think it's up my way. Here's my question. That obviously comes all the way down to the final play of the game where the Raiders were trailing by 1. Ballsy went for the try. They come up with it. Hudson Young scores the match-winning try, but the Sharks did regain the kickoff and had a chance with Ikavalu diving in the corner. It gets sent up, no try. In the end, I think they got it right. There was a toe very close to the sideline. There was no clear evidence of the ball getting to ground. But when he came up, it did kind of look like the ball was on the ground there. And I just wonder if the ref had given try, was there enough evidence to overturn that? And just for a moment, allow yourself to imagine if that had gone up try and then the reaction of Ricky Stewart, and we would have had a Nico Hines sideline conversion after full time to win or lose the game. So imagine the drama. But I think they got it right. I think the Raiders are deserving I wasn't that impressed, as I said, by the Raiders because I was quite disappointed the way that they let the lead slip in the second half. And then with the Sharkies, I didn't think they were that great. I know they had no ball in the first half, and when they got the ball second half, they did a little bit with it. But again, I think we saw that they're not a finished product in round one. If I get Matheos back, I'll bring him in again. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to, and even if Matheos can't get in, that's technology. That's live podcasting for you. He can join us in the comments. So I'll move us now to the later game Friday, which was another big surprise. And that was the Broncos 11 defeating the Bunnies 4. Who could have ever predicted that scoreline? You're a better judge than me. And certainly if you thought Capewell was going to be kicking the field goal that put it beyond doubt. So we didn't have a bet on this game. Or in our multi, we did actually throw the Rabbitohs first half line in there. And I was a little bit worried that the Broncos could be the fitter team. And this is a game where I hate to, you can second guess every decision. But I was second guessing myself big time. I was saying, why didn't we take the double-digit points with the Broncos? We thought they could come in fitter. We thought they'd be hungrier. The Rabbitohs, no Latrell, question marks about Elias. But hey, we didn't have the faith. And we thought the Rabbitohs would be too classy. Thought players like Walker and Cook would be the difference. Well, in the end, Walker picked up right where he left off, unfortunately, throwing a length of the field intercept try. And the Rabbitohs were just so clunky as I bring Matheos back in, hopefully. But to me, again, this was a warning that we did say on Wednesday that some of these teams that are true contenders, like the Rabbitohs and potentially the Roosters the next day, they do not prioritize their early season performances. And that's why, in hindsight, I wish we'd bet against those kind of teams because it really showed. Matheos, if you can hear me, what did you think about the Broncos-Rabbitohs game?
I can hear you, mate. It was a great performance from the Broncos there. They really sort of stepped up. Their energy was great. Their enthusiasm was great. And it's sort of like, they lifted there and they had everything to play for in round one. And I think, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep, keep going.
Sorry, everyone, if it's cutting out. But yeah, so I think South did come into the year, as we said, maybe like a little bit looking towards finals, and they weren't sort of at their best. And you sort of saw Dimitri in the press conference, all the questions were about Reynolds. So were they fully prepared to enter the season without him? You'd like to think so, but they looked very, very clunky to me. And yeah, similar to Manly, I can't really take away much. And any time you see Brisbane there when they have 11 points and you have a Capewell field goal, you sort of would have thought that they'd still lost the game anyway by 10, 15, 20 points. But goes to show that they did commit for the full 80 minutes. And yeah, they were a great underdog.
I don't want to overreact either, but Brisbane does look to have a strong edge about them. They look to have more confidence. They look to be fierce. And you hold an opponent to 4 and an opponent the caliber of the Rabbitohs, you've got to take confidence out of that. Now you can add Reynolds back into the team, as you said. Now, talking about holding an opponent to 4, in all of 2021, Brisbane only kept one opponent all season under 19 points. And that was the lowly Bulldogs, who finished with a historically bad attack and finished last. So that is a big turnaround. Only one game, but you have to have some confidence. And I give you a bit of credit because you did pick Broncos to make the 8. They play that like that. And they've got bona fide superstars, Staggs. But what about Payne Haas? He is absolutely immense. And another guy maybe we slept on, Carrigan. You didn't know what level of production he'd have after the ACL last year. He was awesome for them on Friday night as well. Going to move to Saturday now. Let me know what you made of this one. Knights 20 defeated the Roosters 6.
Unbelievable result, wasn't it? I think that was a multi-killer. It was a knockout killer, and everyone who had the Roosters as an anchor in all their legs sort of experienced the pain of the NRL is unpredictable, and anyone can bet anyone on their given day. I think the Knights, they actually surprised me a lot. Their halves play was actually pretty good, and that's the one area that we sort of thought would be their weakness, was their spine and their halves, and they didn't really need Ponga to do much. They were still creating some decent opportunities. They fought hard defensively. Their forward pack got on top of the Roosters. And I think it was a case of the Roosters are building into the year. Robinson said in his press conference that they were a little bit underdone and they knew that, and they didn't want to make errors to sort of compound on that fitness as an issue. But they made a lot of errors and they sort of compounded themselves. And Kieran Walker will get better. It was their first game. Radley came off with a HIA, don't forget. Billy Smith was out. So I think there's some positives to look forward to as a Roosters fan. And, it'll be interesting to see how they go over the next few weeks.
You made a few reasonable excuses for the Roosters. And then on top of that, the Knights scored 4 tries, 2 of them directly off Roosters spills. There was a spilled bomb by Teddy in the first half, and there was a spilled ball by Warrior Hargraves, or he threw it, I think, to Takeaho in around midfield in the second half. Nobody got on it, and Clifford actually burst through and took it back 40 metres and scored a try. So, I mean, let's not give the Knights a heap of credit for their attack, which we were questioning. But hey, there was a few things to like. A couple of really impressive performances by outside backs. Dom Young on the wing, and Gagai looked like he was origin level Dane Gagai out there. And the Knights, I was impressed by the fact they were willing to shift the ball. They were willing to spread it through the hands and make the Roosters make decisions in defence. And the Knights also just looked the hungrier, more physical side, and they got a deserved victory. Moving to the next game on Saturday, where unfortunately we had a best bet that went down. We played the Warriors in the first half, and it wouldn't have mattered if we played first half or full time because they lost the game 28-16. At one stage, they did hold a second half lead, but they were down early. They were down 12-0 very early, so we were trying to climb out of that one. We didn't get there, but what were your takeaways from this one, Padonis?
Yeah, it always felt like the Dragons were on top, unfortunately, in this one. They started off and they had the wind behind their back. And once I saw that before the game started, I thought, oh, no, we've got a best bet in the first half. And you always hate hearing that or seeing that. And then once they went to a 12-0 lead, and then we sort of, as you said, always on the back foot, trying to claw our way back in. I thought Johnson was pretty good, considering. He'll be a lot better once he starts to gel around that side. But like, some of the stuff we said with the Dragons, with their young halves and all that, they were pretty good actually. They were able to capitalize a lot on the Warriors' mistakes. They made some line breaks, and the Warriors sort of always retreating. And in the second half, when it did flip around, I did think the Warriors could have a chance to come back in the game because they ended the first half with all the momentum, but it wasn't to be. And the Dragons sort of beat us there, and we went 1-1 for our best bets.
Yeah, down 12-0 very early and into the breeze. But, I mean, you can't really use the breeze as too much of an excuse because the Dragons also won the second half by 8 or 10 points when they had to go into the breeze. I thought Johnson was all right, but I did think there was a limitation there with Harris Tavita at fullback. So I do think they'll get a real improvement when he gets to connect with Reece Walsh. On the other hand, the Dragons fullback, Sloan, now you put aside the error he made that allowed Witeni Zelezniak to score. He was really impressive, Sloan. He looks really dangerous. Ravalawa as the Undertaker. Shout out to the Undertaker who had an exceptional round of tips in his own right. Did a lot better than us. Lived up to his name, and it was a great round for him. So hopefully you're following the Undertaker in the Tripod group and on Dabble as well. But he's mentioning Ravalawa, who had a hat-trick, we should mention. But the Warriors, there's some positive signs. I mean, I thought their forward pack did kind of step up, and it was a game of momentum swings. And after they were down 12-0, as I say, they actually found themselves 16-14 in front, I think around the hour mark of the match. But in the end, the Dragons win. And I'd be remiss not to mention that our cameo tipster, Robbie Farah, he stepped in. He had one tip for the week. His favourite play was the Dragons. We might have to give him a bit more respect on his favourite play. And a good thing about Robbie is he'll be contributing hopefully every week, but if not, quite often through the season. And you can also follow him on Dabble. He's got an account there as well, shares his own tips. So, hey, he's got one over us. It's 1-0 to Robbie so far, but it's a long season, that's for sure. Another surprising game, although in the end, most people would have picked the winner, but they didn't have it all their own way. The Storm in defeating the Tigers 26-16. This is another game where the favoured team found themselves down double digits. And honestly, this game was there to be won for the Tigers because if you didn't watch it, you need to understand Brandon Smith broke his hand 2 minutes in. George Jennings, tragically, ACL 10 minutes in. Welsh tore his Achilles, which is also tragic. That was later in the game. You can't really, say that hampered the Storm too much because it was with only a few minutes to go. But they were down on troops, the Storm. We already had no Harry Grant, already no Munster. And the Tigers, as I say, at one point in the game, led 14-4, I believe. And from that point on, the Storm outscored them by 20 points to close out the game. So I give a lot of credit to the Storm. One moment that sticks out to me was after Kenny Malmelo, who'd already had 2 tries, skies and catches another bomb over Xavier Coates, who had a mixed night out in his debut. And he looks to score for all money, and it would have given the Tigers a double-digit lead again in the second half, and a hell of an effort by the Storm to hold him up. They denied him at that point. I think Puppy came across, but I think it was even other players retreating that just got underneath the ball in time. And that was the Tigers' chance. I say it would have extended beyond a converted try lead. They turn him away, and in the end, the Storm, Jerome Hughes steps up with other stars out. He has the other huge moment, which is the match-winning try. And a gritty win by the Storm. On face value, you're not thinking that's an impressive win, but if you understand everything that went down in the game and the adversity, they'll be very happy with that one. But long-term, the biggest story of the game is not even the result. It's those injuries. Cheese probably out a month, and Welsh for the season. That is pretty brutal for the Storm.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't actually catch this game live. I was out on Saturday night, but my mates were messaging me, and I saw Storm were down to 1 on the bench, and I instantly, and then I checked the score, and they were down by 10 points, and I thought, oh no, here we go. There's another upset to kill everyone's tips for the round. But the Storm showed great adversity to come back there, as you said, when they had 1 on the bench, and it goes to show you that the Storm are a clinical machine, and Tigers were brave, but in the end, I think their halves play let them down. In the second half, they couldn't close out the game.
Yeah, although I was mildly impressed by Hastings. I thought he's a strong, mobile 5'8" there. So I think there's at least some decent signs for the Tigers, but you got to find a way to win that with a lot of things going against the Storm, and you find yourself up double digits second half. Now I'm scrolling through all the results here because it's worth mentioning when the Storm were down double digits, a lot of people were staring down the barrel of 0-6 on their tips because Manly was the favourite, Sharks were the favourite, Rabbitohs were the favourite, Roosters were the favourite. All right, you might have had Dragons, but it was kind of 50-50. Some people had Warriors. So when it came to Saturday night, a lot of people only had 1 tip at best and some had none. And then everybody obviously tipped the Storm, and they were in danger. So people really, it was around for the underdogs, but the Storm did turn it around. Let's move to today, and one last game that we've got to unpack, which was a crazy one. It had 9 first-half tries. It was the Parramatta Eels at CommBank Stadium beating the Titans 32-28. A little bit of controversy and a down-to-the-wire finish in the end in this one. But what was your key observation out of that one, Matheos?
Unbelievable first half that was. I think you said 9 tries, 48 points. Parramatta got off to a blistering start. And then, again, it was another one where I sort of leaned them all week and we were close to making them a best bet. You found enough reasons to talk us out of it. And in the end, it paid dividends there with Parramatta only winning by 4 points and the spread of 6.5 at the time on Wednesday. Ended up closing at 13.5 points when I checked today before kickoff, which is absolutely unbelievable. And Brimson was sort of ruled out on Thursday night, Friday morning. So there was a weight of money for the Eels, and Tristan touched on it as well at the top of the show there. But look, I thought the Eels were pretty good. They made some mistakes. I thought the Titans were the same. Very flashy, very exciting side, and you can sort of see that they have the foundations for a great team. But in the end, I think Parramatta's forward pack got on top in the second half, and you could really see the Titans struggling to come out of their own end. And I think, well, obviously you're not going to say it, but I think there was some dodgy calls there if you're a Titans fan. But in the end, that Parramatta end up winning the two points.
Yeah, I want to talk about that call in particular because it may well have decided the game. But Zane has commented there, really important point, that Sexton looked awesome. And, of course, they let Fogarty go, and then Fogarty gets a bad injury. But Sexton, and speaking of Zane, this is the man as well who won the jersey, and it was thanks to this game. He picked Philip Sammy, I believe, to score a try in the 69th minute. Well, Sammy scored a lot earlier than that. So a game that had 9 first-half tries, Sammy scored the 10th try in the first half of the game, and that was only in like the first 10 minutes of the second half. You would have never thought Sammy would be the final try scorer from that. That was the one that he skied up and caught a bomb and then pushed over Gutho and then did the Gutherino in his face as well. And at that point, the Titans were in front. It must have been 28-26. Now, earlier in the first half, the Titans were down as many as 14 points. And if not for sideline conversions, could have been even more. you mentioned the Eels' errors. I mean, I thought the Eels were by far the better team in the first half, but the Eels dropped the ball 5 different times in their own 20. So can you imagine a team that drops it 5 times in their own 20 in a half and still scores 5 tries? That's how bad the Titans' defense was. The Titans did not have a first half error, I believe. And they were also happy to promote the footy, and they scored an amazing try off the back of a line break by Fafita all the way down the right-hand side and then all the way across to the left. So, give the Titans credit. They didn't score their points by accident, but they got the opportunities thanks to Eels' errors, whereas the Eels got their opportunities just because the Titans couldn't handle them. Then the scoring slowed down. As I said, there was no tries in the final half hour after 10 tries in the first 50 minutes. And the Titans were holding onto that lead. And the crucial call that you're alluding to, 15 to go, Ray Stone loses the ball 30 out, 25 out from the Titans line when the Titans had been under a bit of pressure. So it should be a Titans scrum feed. Parramatta challenges the call. And this is what I hate. I understand that referees get calls wrong because they have to call it in the heat of the moment. But it does boil my blood when the bunker gets calls wrong because they get to look at it 4 times and watch it in slow motion. And it was obvious that Ray Stone reached out and planted the ball on a Titans player's foot. And the Titans player was literally rolling away from him. And then the bunker, the genius bunker says,
I was like, Liu.
Liu's foot. And the genius bunker says, you can see there's contact with the Titans player. Yes, the ball touched the Titans player because Ray Stone planted it on his foot. So to me, you get it wrong and you overturn. And the captain's challenge is designed so that teams don't get screwed and you can challenge a bad call. This has worked the other way around. They've just used the challenge in desperation, and then the bunkers made a mistake. And that allowed the Eels to tie the game. And then obviously changed the game because it would have been a Titans ball coming, off their own 30, and instead it was the Eels, kicking a bomb the very next set as well. So in the end, the Eels got 2 more penalties late in the game. The very last penalty when the Titans were desperate trying to regather a dropout. And that's the end, a fine margin of victory. Glad we didn't lay, if 5.5 had still been available on Wednesday night, we would have laid 5.5 as a best bet. We would have lost. So I'll put my hands up if we dodge a loss. I'm happy to dodge a loss. Sometimes I'll be complaining, oh man, we liked that side and they won, wish we backed them. But on Sunday, if we would have had a best bet, it would have been Eels. And if we would have had a best bet on Bulldogs Cowboys, it would have been Cowboys. So very happy to dodge a couple of those, because a losing bet not made is every bit as good as a winning bet made, in fact. So I'm actually relieved. Obviously, 1-1 on best bets is not, going to impress anybody, but I'm relieved to get out of that 1-1. And as I say, to win the mixed matchup for you guys again, they've won it over 70% over the last 12 months, which is quite insane. I mentioned Zane won the jersey. So again, guys, have your shot every week on the preview and on the Winning Mood show. You get a chance to win a jersey. So Zane, he said he's a Broncos fan. He's going to get a Broncos jersey. Shout out to Barney, who sorts those prizes as well. So plenty of people have cashed in this weekend. Any other closing thoughts with us? We've probably gone longer than we would usually, but, round 1 is always a special round to unpack. But take us home.
I'd just like to say thanks to everyone for using the live chat and the double up over the weekend to catch all the games. I was in there, Undertaker was in there, Winnie was in there. It's a great little feature on the app there, and hopefully we can get more participation and more involvement as the season goes on. Plenty of prizes and giveaways in there, and general banter. And yeah, look, it was a great start to the round. The NRL's back. It's exciting. It's a typical Sunday night feeling now where you're questioning what happened over the weekend, but we'll regroup and we'll recap round 2, and we'll be back Wednesday. All good.
Very classy to thank people. I echo that. Thank you, everyone who's got around us. It's been, as I say, it was a mixed weekend of results for us and for all the teams, and a crazy one. But I'm so glad to have footy back. I enjoyed so many of those games, and it's exciting. It's fun. And now we're just into it. We just keep going. We'll go back into the lab. We'll do our very best to come back on Wednesday night with some strong plays for round 2. So appreciate you guys joining. Give us a like and some positive feedback if you appreciate it as well. Let your friends know. Get amongst it. Gamble responsibly. We'll see you Wednesday. Lego.